I got another one of those emails from some woman asking sort of like to get to know us for the purpose of joining the family.
Pour yourself a fresh cup of coffee and settle in, because what I'm about to share will have you questioning everything you thought you knew about Kody Brown's so-called spiritual journey. Picture this. It's a quiet Tuesday evening, and one of our most dedicated viewers is doing what we all do, scrolling through social media, connecting dots, living our best investigative lives. She's the kind of woman who notices when the grocery store moves the cereal aisle and remembers exactly what someone wore to their daughter's wedding 3 years ago. This particular evening, she's cross-referencing some recent Sister Wives updates when something catches her eye: a pattern, a digital breadcrumb trail that leads to a discovery so shocking it makes his infamous "I didn't love you" confession look like small talk at a church potluck.
Listen, I have this wife. Her name is Robin, and she would never let me do anything naughty. As bad as I want to do it.
Our eagle-eyed viewer notices Kody's online activity has taken an interesting turn. Not the usual social media posts about his curls or cryptic quotes about loyalty. No, this is different. This is methodical, calculated, the kind of online behavior that every woman who's ever had her suspicions about a partner would recognize immediately. She starts screenshotting, documenting timestamps, cross-referencing his public statements about being done with polygamy with what his actual digital footprint reveals. And friends, what she uncovers is a masterclass in saying one thing while doing the complete opposite, because while Kody has spent months telling anyone who will listen that plural marriage is repulsive, and he's never doing it again.
I would love healing with Mary. I would love healing with Janelle. I would love healing with Christine.
His online activity tells a drastically different story. He's not just entertaining women who reach out to him. As the season 20 previews suggest, he's actively seeking them out. The evidence? Email exchanges, dating site activity, conversations that started innocently enough but quickly turned toward discussions of spiritual families and divine arrangements. Our viewer has documented what appears to be a deliberate, sustained campaign to find wife number 5. But here's where this story takes a turn that'll make every mother's blood boil. While Kody's busy shopping for his next spiritual conquest, crafting the perfect messages to potential wives, and presumably planning how to introduce them to the family dynamic, his actual children, the ones who already exist and desperately need their father, can't even get a returned phone call.
I don't want to talk to Kody ever again.
The timeline is devastating. The same weeks he's actively courting new women online coincide perfectly with missed visitation calls, forgotten birthdays, and unanswered texts from kids who just want their dad to show up. One source close to the family alleges that while Kody spent hours crafting messages to prospective wives, his own daughter Truly's calls went straight to voicemail for days. This isn't speculation, and it isn't rumor. This is a documented pattern of priorities that reveals everything you need to know about where Kody Brown's heart actually lies. Ready for the real bombshell? The timing of his wife-hunting expedition coincides with something else entirely. Let's roll up our sleeves and examine what our digital detective uncovered about the children's side of this heartbreaking equation. Because while Kody's allegedly crafting romantic messages to potential wife number 5, the kids he already has are experiencing what can only be described as emotional abandonment in real time.
How much longer until you just realize that he's...
Picture Truly, now a teenager, trying to maintain some semblance of a relationship with her father. Sources close to the family whisper that her attempts to connect, simple texts asking about school events, requests for advice, invitations to spend time together, are met with radio silence. Days pass, sometimes weeks. Meanwhile, during these same periods, Kody's online activity shows him engaging in lengthy conversations with women, exploring the possibility of joining his spiritual family. The pattern becomes even more devastating when you realize this isn't just about Truly. Multiple Brown children have reportedly experienced the same treatment. Phone calls that go unanswered while their father is busy courting strangers on the internet. Birthday messages left on read while he's crafting thoughtful responses to women he's never met in person. One particularly gut-wrenching example involves what sources describe as a Father's Day incident. While several of his children reached out with messages and invitations to spend the day together, Kody was reportedly deep in conversation with a prospective plural wife about her spiritual readiness and whether she'd be open to relocating to Arizona. His children's messages left unread until the following Tuesday.
I wanted to apologize with all my heart. I said I didn't love you. That wasn't true.
Now, every woman who's ever juggled a family schedule knows this truth. You make time for what matters to you. If Kody can spend hours composing messages to potential wives, complete with spiritual guidance and family dynamics explanations, he certainly has time to text his daughter back about her soccer game. But here's where it gets even more calculated. The digital evidence suggests Kody isn't just passively entertaining women who reach out to him, he's actively seeking them through specific channels, fundamentalist dating sites, online forums for spiritual families, even reaching out through mutual connections in polygamist communities. Meanwhile, his existing children are left to wonder why dad has time to get to know complete strangers but can't remember their middle names, why he can invest energy in explaining plural family dynamics to potential wife number 5 but can't invest 10 minutes in a phone conversation with the kids who've been living those dynamics their entire lives. The cruelest irony, while Kody shops for someone new to shower with attention and courtship energy, his actual children are essentially forced to compete with fantasies. They're losing the father lottery to women who don't even exist in their lives yet. And this heartbreaking neglect is happening at the exact same time Kody's trying to convince his ex-wives that he's changed, that he's sorry, that he wants to make amends. But why now? Hop in the time machine for a moment, because understanding Kody's wife shopping spree requires examining his decades-long pattern of romantic conquest and spiritual manipulation.
Is there any part of you that would ever go back to Kody?
This isn't his first rodeo, friends. This is a man who's been perfecting the art of wife acquisition since the early 1990s, and every single edition followed the exact same playbook he's running today. Let's start with the original Mrs. Brown, Mary, back in 1990, young, starry-eyed, genuinely believing in the spiritual calling of plural marriage. Kody was the charming fundamentalist heartthrob who swept her off her feet with talk of eternal families and divine purpose. Within 3 years, he'd added Janelle to the mix. 2 years after that, Christine joined the fold. The pattern was clear. Identify a woman seeking spiritual fulfillment, love bomb her with religious rhetoric mixed with personal attention, then gradually introduce her to the family vision. But here's what every woman who's balanced a household budget while someone else made the big decisions will recognize immediately. Each wife acquisition followed major life stressors or financial pressures. Mary was alone and searching for meaning. Janelle was dealing with family upheaval and looking for stability. Christine was a young mother seeking support in raising her children. Kody didn't just find wives, he found women in vulnerable transitions who could be convinced that joining his family would solve their problems. Fast forward to Robin in 2010, and the methodology had evolved, but the core strategy remained identical. Robin was a divorced mother of 3, struggling financially and emotionally. Enter Kody with his practiced spiritual courtship, complete with promises of eternal love and family support. The difference with Robin, by then he'd mastered the technique so thoroughly that she became not just another wife, but the favorite who would eventually help him discard the others.
I'm not trying to make us back together in any way, Mary.
We are never, ever, ever getting back together.
Now here's where it gets fascinating from a behavioral psychology perspective. Each courtship phase was characterized by intense attention, spiritual conversations, and promises of a better life within the principle. Kody would dedicate hours to getting to know these women, learning their dreams, understanding their vulnerabilities, crafting himself into exactly what they needed him to be. Sound familiar? Because that's precisely the pattern our digital detective documented in his current wife shopping expedition. The same spiritual language, the same promise of divine purpose, the same calculated attention designed to make a vulnerable woman feel chosen, special, destined for something greater. But there's a darker element to this historical pattern that reveals everything about Kody's true motivations. Every single wife acquisition coincided with either financial opportunity or personal image enhancement. The wives weren't just spiritual companions, they were acquisitions that served specific functions in building brand Kody. But this time, there's something different about his approach, something that reveals just how dramatically his public persona has shifted from his private reality. Let's pause for a moment and examine the sheer audacity of what we're witnessing here. Because less than 12 months ago, Kody Brown stood in front of television cameras and declared plural marriage repulsive. Not challenging, not complicated, repulsive. He told the world he would never ever consider living polygamy again, that the very idea disgusted him.
What's your love language?
My love language is physical touch. He's handsome, so there's that.
That he couldn't understand how anyone would choose such a lifestyle. Fast forward to today, and our digital detective has documented clear evidence of him actively courting potential wife number 5. The man who publicly declared polygamy abhorrent is privately shopping for his next spiritual conquest. The hypocrisy is so brazen it takes your breath away. But here's where it gets even more calculated. During those same season 19 interviews where he was denouncing plural marriage, behind the scenes he was reportedly already exploring options. Sources close to the production allege that while filming segments about his newfound monogamous bliss with Robin, Kody was simultaneously maintaining conversations with women interested in joining plural families. Think about the level of deception this requires. He's sitting across from interviewers, tears in his eyes, talking about how painful and destructive polygamy was for his family. Meanwhile, his phone is buzzing with messages from prospective wives he's been courting online. He's mastered the art of public repentance while privately preparing for his next act. The timeline reveals everything you need to know about Kody's relationship with Truth. January 2024. I will never live polygamy again. March 2024. First documented contact with potential wife number 5. June 2024. Multiple active conversations with women exploring plural marriage. September 2024. Season 20 filming begins, showcasing his redemption tour with ex-wives. Every woman who's ever caught someone in a lie recognizes this pattern. The public declarations that sound too emphatic, too absolute, the private behavior that directly contradicts the public stance, the careful timing of revelations designed to manipulate perception while reality unfolds according to a completely different script.
You and Kody could hang out.
Yeah.
But there's something even more sinister about this particular deception. Kody isn't just lying to the public or the production team. He's lying to his remaining wife, Robin, who reportedly has no idea about the extent of his wife shopping activities. The same woman who's been defending him publicly, insisting that their monogamous marriage is fulfilling and complete, is being deceived about his actual intentions. The spiritual rhetoric remains the same, but the execution has become purely transactional. Where his earlier wife acquisitions at least maintained some pretense of religious conviction, this current shopping expedition feels entirely driven by ego and the desperate need to rebuild his empire of attention and adoration. And the timing of this wife-hunting expedition reveals something even more disturbing about Kody's true motivations. Now here's where this story gets really interesting, because experienced viewers, especially those who've lived through fundamentalist environments or dealt with narcissistic partners, are connecting dots that paint a picture so clear it practically glows neon. What Kody's doing isn't random romantic exploration, it's textbook narcissistic hoovering disguised as a spiritual redemption tour. Let me explain hoovering for anyone who hasn't had the misfortune of experiencing it firsthand. It's when someone who's lost their primary sources of attention and validation goes back to previous relationships, trying to suck them back in like a vacuum cleaner, hence the name. The hoovering typically involves carefully crafted apologies, promises of change, and just enough vulnerability to make the target question whether maybe, just maybe, this time will be different. Sound familiar? Because that's exactly what Kody's doing with his ex-wives, the sudden dinner invitations, the carefully scripted apologies, the admission that he didn't love them, followed by backtracking.
I think I need to get out.
Change up your hair a little bit, a kind of a new Janelle.
Classic hoovering behavior designed to keep them emotionally connected and potentially available as backup options. But here's where former fundamentalists in our viewing community are raising red flags. They recognize something even more calculating. Kody isn't just hoovering his ex-wives for emotional supply. He's maintaining them as references for prospective wife number 5. Think about it from a potential new wife's perspective. If she's exploring joining a plural family, she's going to want to know about his track record with previous wives. A woman considering becoming Kody's 5th wife would naturally ask, what happened with your other marriages? Are you on good terms with your ex-wives? Do they support your spiritual journey? If Kody can point to amicable relationships and mutual forgiveness, it makes him look like the injured party who's learned from his mistakes rather than the problem himself. The redemption tour isn't about genuine healing with Mary, Janelle, and Christine. It's about creating a portfolio of positive references for his next romantic conquest. Every reconciliation conversation is essentially a job interview prep session for wife number 5. Women who've survived manipulative relationships recognize this pattern immediately. The sudden interest in making things right that has nothing to do with actual remorse, and everything to do with cleaning up his reputation for future opportunities. The carefully timed apologies that coincide with his need for character witnesses rather than any genuine spiritual awakening. But experienced viewers are noticing something else that's absolutely chilling. The same energy Kody's putting into wooing his ex-wives and courting potential new wives is completely absent from his relationships with his children.
We talked about the spiritual divorce, and I think I'm ready.
I love that you're doing this, Janelle.
He can craft hours-long apology sessions for the cameras, but he can't return a simple text from his daughter. But the most damning evidence of his true motivations lies in the financial forensics of exactly when this wife-hunting expedition began. Ladies, grab your reading glasses and settle in for some financial detective work, because when you follow the money trail, the timing of Kody's wife-shopping expedition becomes absolutely crystal clear. This isn't about spiritual calling or romantic longing. This is about cold, hard cash and legal strategy. Our digital detective didn't just document Kody's romantic pursuits. She cross-referenced the timeline with court filings, property records, and custody proceedings. What she discovered should make every woman who's ever negotiated a divorce settlement absolutely furious. The first documented evidence of Kody actively seeking wife number 5? March 2024? Guess what else happened in March 2024? Christine filed formal paperwork for child support and custody arrangements for Truly. Coincidence? Not a chance. The pattern becomes even more obvious when you examine the Coyote Pass property settlement timeline. Kody's most intensive wife courting period, April through June 2024, coincides exactly with the months when property division negotiations were at their most contentious. While his ex-wives were fighting for their fair share of assets they'd helped build, Kody was busy sweet-talking potential wife number 5 about the beautiful Arizona property where they could start their spiritual journey together. Think about the audacity of this strategy. He's literally shopping for a new wife using the same property he's simultaneously trying to keep from his ex-wives in legal proceedings. It's like trying to sell your house while you're still fighting your ex-spouse for ownership rights. The sheer nerve is breathtaking. But here's where it gets even more calculated.
Kody called. He said that somebody wants a couple pieces of the property. Does your money ever go into his hands? It better not go through his hands.
Sources close to the legal proceedings suggest that Kody's redemption tour with his ex-wives, all those carefully orchestrated apology dinners, were strategically timed to coincide with mediation sessions and settlement negotiations. Every "I'm sorry" conversation happened within days of major legal deadlines or court filings. Women who've been through contentious divorces recognize this tactic immediately. It's the classic "I've changed. Can't we work this out without lawyers?" manipulation designed to convince the other party to accept less than they deserve. The sudden spiritual awakening that conveniently appears when child support payments are being calculated. The financial forensics reveal something even more disturbing. During the same months Kody was allegedly struggling to afford fair property settlements with his ex-wives, he was simultaneously discussing financial arrangements with prospective wife number 5. Messages allegedly include conversations about where she would live, how the household budget would work, and what kind of financial security he could provide. So let me get this straight. He's crying poverty when it comes to supporting the children he already has, but he's promising financial stability to a woman he's never met in person? The financial priorities always favor his wants over his existing family's needs. And when this carefully calculated timeline hit the Sister Wives viewing community, the reaction was nothing short of explosive. Picture this moment. Our digital detective posts her findings in the main Sister Wives Facebook group at 2:47 p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon. Within 20 minutes, the comment section explodes. Within an hour, the post has been shared to quilting circles, book clubs, and group texts across the country. By evening, the revelation has reached every corner of the Sister Wives viewing community, and the collective outrage is palpable.
We're going to close on Coyote Pass soon.
This is bull. I'm not selling this land until everything is perfectly fair and we do this the right way. Sorry.
The response isn't just anger, it's recognition. These are women who've balanced household budgets while someone else made unilateral financial decisions. Women who've watched partners prioritize new relationships over existing family responsibilities. Women who've seen the signs of emotional manipulation disguised as spiritual awakening. They know exactly what they're looking at, and they're not having it. The Facebook groups light up with personal stories. "This is exactly what my ex did during our custody battle," writes one viewer. "He started dating before the divorce was even finalized, then claimed he couldn't afford child support." Another adds, "The way he's courting new women while ignoring his kids' calls reminds me of my father. Same playbook, different decade." The most powerful responses come from women who've escaped fundamentalist environments themselves. They recognize the pattern of spiritual rhetoric being weaponized to justify selfish behavior. "He's using religious language to mask pure narcissism," explains one former plural wife. "The spiritual calling narrative is just cover for wanting attention from multiple women while avoiding responsibility to the ones he already has." The reaction spreads beyond Facebook groups into real-world conversations. PTA meetings suddenly include discussions about recognizing manipulation tactics in relationships. Book clubs pivot from their scheduled novels to analyzing the psychology of narcissistic behavior. Women are using Kody's actions as teachable moments for their own daughters about red flags and potential partners. But perhaps the most telling community response comes from mothers who've watched their own children navigate divorced parent dynamics.
Standoff at the Coyote Pass, final showdown.
They see Truly's unanswered calls and remember their own kids waiting by the phone for visits that never came. They recognize the pain of children competing with their parents' new romantic interests for basic attention and love. The collective wisdom of these communities creates a powerful educational moment. Women are sharing practical advice about protecting assets during divorce proceedings. Former fundamentalists are explaining the specific manipulation tactics used in patriarchal religious communities. Divorce survivors are offering scripts for how to respond when an ex-partner suddenly wants to make amends during legal negotiations. The Sister Wives community itself has become a masterclass in pattern recognition. These viewers aren't just consuming entertainment, they're conducting collective analysis of manipulation tactics, financial abuse, and emotional neglect in real time. The internet just woke up, and the children at the center of this mess are finally getting the advocates they deserve. As news of Kody's wife shopping expedition spreads through the viewing community, something remarkable happens. The conversation shifts from his romantic pursuits to the people truly affected by his choices, his children. For the first time in years, the focus lands squarely where it belongs, on the kids who never asked to be part of this public family drama but are paying the highest emotional price. Insiders close to the Brown family whisper that several of the older children have become aware of the online discussions about their father's behavior. While they've maintained public silence about family matters, sources suggest that seeing strangers on the internet recognize and validate their experiences has been both overwhelming and healing. Imagine being Truly scrolling through social media and discovering that thousands of women across the country are outraged on her behalf.
There's been more effort put into creating pain and hurting each other. Makes me angry.
That complete strangers are calling out the very behavior she's been experiencing privately. The unanswered calls, the missed events, the feeling of competing with dad's romantic interests for basic attention. For a teenager who might have been questioning whether her expectations of her father were reasonable, this public validation could be life-changing. The adult children's silence speaks volumes. When public figures' children consistently avoid defending their parents' behavior, it tells a story that no amount of public relations can spin. The fact that none of Kody's adult children have stepped forward to contradict the narrative about his neglectful parenting suggests the community's analysis hits uncomfortably close to truth. Meanwhile, the ex-wives' responses to the revelation have been carefully measured but telling. Christine's continued focus on her new marriage and family life sends a clear message. She's not looking backward. Regardless of Kody's redemption tour attempts, her actions speak louder than any public statement could. Janelle's recent social media activity reveals someone processing complex emotions. While she's not directly addressing the wife shopping allegations, her posts about self-worth and moving forward suggest she's well aware of what's happening and choosing her own path despite any reconciliation attempts. Mary's response has been perhaps most revealing. After months of back-and-forth social media posts about Kody, she's gone notably quiet. Those familiar with narcissistic relationship dynamics recognize this pattern. The moment when the target finally sees the manipulation clearly and stops engaging with the cycle entirely. The broader fundamentalist community has been watching this unfold with particular interest. Former members of polygamist groups see Kody's behavior as a textbook example of how patriarchal systems prioritize the leader's desires over family welfare. They're using his actions as educational tools to help others recognize similar patterns in their own communities. But perhaps most importantly, the conversation has evolved beyond gossip into genuine advocacy. Community members are raising awareness about the long-term emotional impact on children when parents prioritize romantic pursuits over existing family relationships. And as this groundswell of support builds for his children, legal experts are beginning to weigh in on what this revelation could mean for ongoing custody and financial arrangements. Here's where things get legally fascinating, because family law attorneys across the country are looking at Kody's wife shopping timeline and seeing potential grounds for serious courtroom consequences. When you're actively seeking new romantic relationships while fighting custody battles and claiming financial hardship, you've essentially handed opposing counsel a gift-wrapped case study in misplaced priorities. Legal experts familiar with family court proceedings explain that a parent's dating behavior can absolutely impact custody decisions, especially when it demonstrates a pattern of prioritizing romantic pursuits over existing children's needs. The documented timeline of Kody courting potential wife number 5 while his daughter's calls go unanswered creates what attorneys call compelling evidence of parental priorities. But here's where it gets particularly damaging for Kody's legal position. Family courts take a dim view of parents who claim poverty during child support calculations while simultaneously discussing financial arrangements with new romantic interests. The contradiction between "I can't afford adequate support for my existing children" and "let me explain how I could financially provide for you" creates credibility issues that could impact multiple ongoing proceedings. One family law specialist notes that the timing of his wife shopping activities coinciding with property settlement negotiations could be viewed as evidence of manipulative behavior designed to distract from financial responsibilities. Courts don't appreciate parents who try to use romantic reconciliation attempts to avoid paying fair settlements or adequate child support. The revelation also potentially impacts his redemption tour strategy with ex-wives. If Christine's legal team can demonstrate that his apology dinner coincided with active wife shopping activities, it undermines any argument that he was genuinely seeking reconciliation rather than trying to manipulate the legal process. For ongoing custody arrangements, documented evidence of prioritizing potential new relationships over existing children's emotional needs could influence visitation decisions. Courts increasingly recognize that children's emotional welfare includes having parents who prioritize their needs over romantic pursuits. The financial implications extend beyond immediate child support calculations. If Kody's been discussing property arrangements or household budgets with prospective wife number 5 while claiming he can't afford fair settlements with his ex-wives, that creates discoverable evidence of his actual financial capacity and priorities. Legal observers note that this situation illustrates why family courts often require financial disclosures and lifestyle examinations during divorce proceedings. A parent's spending on romantic pursuits while claiming inability to support existing children creates powerful courtroom evidence about true priorities and available resources. Perhaps most significantly, the documented pattern of neglecting children's emotional needs while pursuing new romantic relationships could influence future custody modifications. As children age and can express preferences about visitation, courts consider evidence of which parent consistently prioritizes their welfare. The legal ramifications are still unfolding, but the evidence trail Kody's created could have lasting consequences for his parental rights and financial obligations. What this revelation means for the family's future goes far beyond courtroom decisions. So here we stand, looking at the wreckage of what was once marketed as a loving, plural family. And the picture that emerges is both heartbreaking and instructive. Kody's wife shopping expedition, while neglecting his existing children, has exposed the fundamental lie at the heart of his entire public persona. This was never about spiritual calling or divine family arrangements. This was always about one man's insatiable need for attention, validation, and control. The impact on his children will likely reverberate for years. Mental health professionals who work with children of divorce note that parental rejection during formative years creates lasting attachment issues. When kids watch a parent invest energy in courting strangers while ignoring their basic emotional needs, it sends a devastating message about their worth and value. For the Sister Wives franchise itself, this revelation creates an existential crisis. How do you continue a show called Sister Wives when the central figure is actively shopping for new wives while publicly claiming to be done with polygamy? The credibility gap has become so vast that even the most dedicated viewers are questioning whether anything they've watched over the past several seasons was genuine. The broader polygamist community is also grappling with the fallout. Kody's behavior has become a cautionary tale about how patriarchal power structures can enable narcissistic abuse disguised as religious devotion. Former fundamentalists are using his actions as educational tools to help others recognize similar patterns in their own communities. But perhaps the most significant consequence is the conversation this has sparked about modern family dynamics and parental priorities. Kody's wife shopping while neglecting his children has become a case study in what happens when parents prioritize romantic validation over existing family responsibilities. It's forced a national conversation about the lasting damage caused when children are treated as secondary to their parents' romantic pursuits. Red flag checklist for anyone watching this unfold. When someone claims financial hardship regarding existing family obligations but has resources for new romantic pursuits, that's manipulation. When apologies coincide with legal proceedings rather than genuine remorse, that's strategy. When a parent has time for potential partners but not existing children, that reveals true priorities. The ultimate irony is that in his quest to rebuild his empire of feminine attention and validation, Kody has instead created the most damning public record of his character imaginable. Every message to potential wife number 5, every ignored call from his children, every calculated apology to his ex-wives has been documented and analyzed by a community of women who recognize manipulation when they see it. The children at the center of this mess deserve better. They deserve a father who prioritizes their emotional needs over his romantic pursuits. They deserve stability, consistency, and unconditional love. Whether they'll receive those things from Kody remains to be seen. But at least now they know that thousands of strangers across the country see their worth, recognize their pain, and are rooting for their healing. So what do you think? Will Kody actually find someone desperate enough to become wife number 5? Or is this just another calculated publicity stunt to keep the cameras rolling? And which legal consequence has you cheering the loudest, potential custody changes, or the financial reality check he's about to receive? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Tap like, hit subscribe, and keep those notifications on because trust me, we're just getting started with this mess. A fresh video is already queued up, and something tells me the next round of Sister Wives revelations will be even juicier than the last.